This is America on the Road, named Best Radio Show by the International Media Conference, and now in its 27th year on the air. Thanks for being with us as we bring you the latest automotive information from around the world. There's an all-new version of one of the most popular SUVs in the country. We were among a handful of journalists to see it, sit in it, smell it, and we'll tell you all about it coming up. And while many automakers are touting an all-electric future, an executive from a major global automaker is saying, hey, not so fast. There's some problems that have to be dealt with first. He's not saying it's impossible, but is pointing out some problems. So we'll tell you more about that later in the show. America on the Road is brought to you by Mercury Insurance and DrivingToday.com. If you're looking to save some money, you should switch to Mercury for your auto and home insurance. Californians save an average of $670 with Mercury. So imagine how much you could save. Get a quote today at drivingtoday.com/auto insurance. That's drivingtoday.com/auto-insurance. Hi, I'm Jack Nerad. With me is co-host Chris Teague. Chris lives at one end of the country. I live at the other. Each week we get together to talk about cars, the car industry, and how we can maybe get the most out of our cars. Chris, how are things going there in the Teague household?
Things are crazy as usual, but getting to the weather as we normally do during this part of the show, it's really funny. We had some 70-degree days earlier this week, and then overnight switched to a 40-degree day, which wreaked havoc with an electric vehicle that I have, which is really funny, but it's also made me very grumpy. So the change in weather is funny this time of year.
Yeah. It can get you down, and we had time change and all that stuff. That throws everybody off. I want to let people know that Dance in the Dark, my new book, is now available as a paperback and a Kindle edition on Amazon. So you might want to look for that. Tell us about the test vehicle, though, that you had this week.
I spent the week with the Genesis electrified G80, which is a large electric sedan. It's got a lot to talk about, so I can't wait to tell you all about it.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about it, talk with you about it. I drove it at the North American Car of the Year testing, and so I have some opinions, too. I'll be road testing the 2023 Ford Mustang Ecoboost Premium. I had a chance to drive it on some very challenging roads here in Southern California, and I'll have a full report on that. We also have a great interview for you. Brian Hallgren is a Stellantis powertrain engineer. He and I will discuss the all-new Hurricane twin-turbo i6 engine. Powers the new Wagoneer L and Grand Wagoneer L. Two variants, actually. A new engine like this doesn't come along every day, so we'll get inside it and talk about it. Pretty cool stuff. But before we do anything else, we'll be bringing you some of the most important auto information from around the world. So stay with us with Chris Teague. This is Jack Nerad with you. And thanks so much for being with us right here on America on the Road. Welcome back, everybody, to America on the Road with Chris Teague. Jack Nerad back with you. Chris a little grumpy, but we're going to try to cheer him up on the show. And we have some interesting news to talk about here. An all-new vehicle from a major manufacturer, a really popular vehicle. And we kind of teased you with that, but it is the Honda Pilot that's being introduced. And Chris, I think that's going to be a pretty interesting vehicle. I had a chance to get in it, see it, smell it. Couldn't drive it, but they gave us an early look, and I think it's going to be a winner out there.
I think it is, and you can look at the styling and see how they started this with the Honda Civic with more upright grills and more muscular sort of looks. I really like the way they've changed the Pilot. I thought it was a little frumpy or a little minivan-esque before, and I can't wait to try the new TrailSport trim. So I think they've done a great job, at least with styling on this new model.
Yeah, I'm excited about the whole thing. It's a new platform and much less minivan these days. They walked away from the minivan platform that the old Pilot was on, and I think that's a major advantage just right off the top. And then, as you say, the TrailSport is very, very cool. Not exactly a Jeep competitor, but I think it's going to be pretty neat. It's got off-road tuned suspension, all-terrain tires, skid plates, kind of the good stuff, all-wheel drive system. It doesn't have a two-speed transfer case, though. I think overall they've done a really nice job styling the new Pilot, and we'll have pictures on drivingtoday.com showing it. Very, very cool stuff. It has a all new, they claim, Honda says, 3.5-liter V6 engine. Of course, it had a previous Pilot had a 3.5-liter V6 engine, too. This one produces 285 horsepower. And one of the coolest things I think is the second row. You can get it with a removable center seat, so you have a pass through to the third row, which is belted for 3, or you can remove this seat and or put the seat in. Actually, the seat stores under the rear cargo floor very neatly, and then you can put it between the two, essentially kind of like captain's chairs or bucket seats there, and off you go. You've got 3 across seating, and I think that kind of flexibility. I mean, you've got kids that you have in the back seat all the time. I mean, you've got to like that idea.
Yeah, it's one of the big reasons why people buy minivans is because they offer more flexible seating options. You know, the stow and go seats, you can take them out, you can move them around, and Honda really did. So they moved away from the minivan look with styling, but then they kind of added this extra functionality, which I think is going to be a huge benefit for a lot of buyers. So for me, that would be a big selling point.
Yeah, overall, it's got class-leading overall passenger space, which is nice. It's always had, the Pilot has always been one of the most accommodating of the mid-size SUVs, the crossover SUVs. And it has good stuff too, like a digital instrument display in the top model, 9-inch touchscreen you can get in some of the top models. Certainly Honda has improved its infotainment system that has had some issues in the past. It also has hill descent control and torque vectoring all-wheel drive on the functional side. So, you know, and when you go to the trail, when you get the TrailSport, it has trail torque logic in the torque vectoring system, which is a very complicated system that enables it to do a lot of things that you need on the trail, torque multiplication and torque to the right wheel and not spinning wheels that are not in contact with the ground. It also has a camera system to help you when you're like going over a hill or something like that. And gee, what's over the crest here? I'd sure like to know. So I'm pretty excited about what's going to happen with this longer wheelbase, wider track. I mean, you've seen it. You know the specs on it. What's your take?
You know, I think we could debate whether people would actually use those off-road features or not, but I think Honda's done enough here to create, I'm not going to say the illusion because it actually may have some capability to create the image of capability, which is what a lot of people really want. And the all-wheel drive system, the torque vectoring all-wheel drive system is excellent in the Honda Passport. I can see it being excellent in the Pilot as well. And it's not just good for trails, Jack. It's great in the snow. I got the Passport out last year in the snow, and the all-wheel drive system really helps. So you don't have to be an off-roader to get some use out of these features.
Yeah, absolutely true. And oddly enough, we've had some snow here in Southern California in the mountains this past week. So a lot of people are getting the chance to use all-wheel drive systems and do stuff you wouldn't normally expect that to happen. A lot of space inside, 113.67 cubic feet behind the first row. That's an immense amount. I mean, that number probably doesn't mean a whole lot to a lot of people, but that's an immense amount of space. And more than 22 cubic feet behind the third row. In 2 levels, that might take into account that area where you store the middle seat in some of these vehicles. Not all of them have it. You can get this vehicle as a 7-passenger or an 8-passenger. And 8 passengers, you know, they're not all that prevalent in the mid-size range. So I think that's a big advantage too. Don't you think so, Chris?
It is. I personally like captain's chairs because it keeps the kids separated in the middle. But if you need that extra seat, the bench is really handy.
Right. And I'm excited to drive the TrailSport. You know, this torque vectoring for the trail should be pretty interesting. And we'll just have to see how that unfolds. But it's going to be coming out very soon. Have a look at it and check it out and go from there, because I think it's a much better looking vehicle as well with a great interior. Well, here is another thing we kind of teased earlier, and that is a auto industry exec saying, hey, you know, maybe calm down a little bit on EVs. And this is a guy who should know, because he is the chief of advanced product development for Ford on EVs. His name is Doug Field, rather. And he is certainly gung-ho about EVs, but at the same time, and this was at a conference recently, he said that infrastructure is the big thing that is a detriment to widespread adoption. And it strikes me that Chris Teague has been saying that for a long time about what he's dealing with in Maine, and me for another reason here in Southern California. I mean, I think there's issues, and they're not just issues about the hardware, about electric vehicles. I think they're getting sorted out. I think maybe it's the infrastructure that's a much bigger problem. What do you think?
Yeah, and I complain about it here in Maine all the time with the lack of chargers, but think about the Midwest. So if you live in like Wyoming or Iowa or even parts of Missouri and Arkansas, you can drive for hundreds of miles and never see an EV charger, at least on certain highways. So there's a long way to go before someone can buy an EV and drive it on a road trip or take it outside of their home area and feel comfortable doing so, that they're going to have charging and support when they need it. So I agree with them 100% on this. And I've been beating this drum for, as you said, for a few years now. So it's not surprising, I guess.
Yeah, here's another thing that we have talked about, and he's weighing in on. And Ford has this vision for vehicles that do things that your phone can't do, which I guess is a good thing. But he's talking about immersive augmented reality experiences or virtual reality experiences like we talked about last week. He says this will give Ford the opportunity to create an experience that will blow people away and make them feel like they're in a science fiction movie. What's your take on that?
I have no problem with them doing it as long as they're not doing it while they're driving down the road, unless there's some major advancement in vehicle autonomous driving technology in the next few years here. We've said this before. I can understand if you're sitting at a charging station, you need something to do with your time, with your brain, with your hands, whatever. But I just see it's ripe for abuse. There are a lot of people that are going to figure out how to do things with this that shouldn't be done. And I guess we'll just have to wait for the YouTube videos, but I don't see it. Right. I don't see it being something I'm ready to embrace.
I'm not sure I want to be in a science fiction movie. In fact, I don't particularly like science fiction movies. So, I'm quite happy to just drive the car and experience it that way. But I am an old guy. I get that. Quick news note too. A lot of car companies, I'm not sure whether they're taking it out on Elon Musk or they have legitimate reasons, but they have paused their advertising on Twitter now that Musk has taken over Twitter. How do you feel about that?
Well, I will say I don't really have an opinion on him buying Twitter. He has the money or whatever. He can do that. That's his choice. But for an advertiser, I mean, look at what just happened. So most of the company's trust and safety or moderation team, whatever you want to call it, was laid off. So if you're General Motors or some of these automakers that are stopping advertising, you have no idea what the platform is going to look like. So do you want to advertise next to potentially destructive, extremely violent language, or do you want to wait and see if things kind of shake out and become more stable? So I'm not surprised to see it. But again, who knows what's going to happen in the next few months with this thing?
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see. I'm not certain it's going to blow up with violent language, but we'll see. Free speech should be free is the way I look at it. But again, I'm a Luddite. So when we come back, we will be reviewing some vehicles, some pretty cool stuff, actually. An all-new electric vehicle you might not have heard of. It is very, very cool. And the Ford Mustang also will be reviewed in the next segment. So stay with us right here on America on the Road. Welcome back, everybody, to America on the Road with Chris Teague, Jack Nerad back with you, and it is road test time. I'm excited for road test time because Chris is driving a vehicle I drove recently, and I want to talk with him about it. We haven't discussed it, but it's pretty cool, isn't it, Chris?
I agree. It is very cool. It was the 2023 Genesis G80 or electrified G80. So this is a little different than the standard G80 that they make. And it's not quite their flagship because they do sell a G90 sedan, which is top of the line, so to speak. The vehicle starts at around $81,000. My car, as tested, was $84,000, just a little bit more than $84K. It comes in a single trim. It's called Prestige. You can add a few options, but by and large, it's a single model, single powertrain choice. You kind of have streamlined options there. I think it's for the better, Jack. And I'm going to get your opinion on this too. I think Genesis has followed Hyundai's lead into the luxury segment. They equip their vehicles well out of the box, so you don't have to add a bunch of options. And I think that's especially true with the G80. So what do you think about the packaging and the value, I guess, of the G80 electrified?
I think it's a screaming value in the EV market. I drove that, and I drove the Mercedes EQE at the same time. Well, not at the same time because you can't do that. You're going to be in one driver's seat or another, but during the same period of time. And I was really impressed with what Genesis provides in this vehicle. Just the interior packaging, it's really luxury. I mean, it's not just kind of luxurious. It's really kind of very, very plush. And the way it drives seemed perfect to me. I mean, there were no problems whatsoever, really.
I agree. So you've got two electric motors on board. They make 365 combined horsepower. And this is a full-size sedan, Jack, and it does 0 to 60 in just over 4 seconds with zero noise, zero drama. People at stoplights are just absolutely amazed that this gigantic car is just able to take off in with such a kick, and nobody believes it's electric until you actually get up and look at it, because it's a new model. People aren't used to seeing it. And I've remarked in the past about how people stop and take pictures of Genesis vehicles. I think the G80 is just as striking visually as the GV80 and some of the other vehicles that they make. So great styling on the outside. It has rear wheel steering as standard. So even this is a full size car, the wheels, when you're traveling slow speed, they turn opposite to the front wheels so that it tightens the turning radius. And at higher speed, they turn with the front wheels, which increase stability on the highway and things. The result is that the car feels a lot smaller and more agile than you would expect. You have room for 5 people, but at the same time, it goes around corners surprisingly quick. Part of that's due to the fact that the battery packs are located low in the floor and there's no gas engine. So the weight distribution is low, so it holds the car to the road. Quiet, refined, and smooth. 282 miles of range, Jack. I observed every bit of that, even though it was a little chilly. I mentioned earlier in the show, we dropped down into the 30s overnight. It slowed charging to a crawl, but it didn't impact range at all, which I'm sure would happen if we got a little colder. But no complaints on the range and the powertrain operation. We complain about infrastructure, everything else. But if I were buying an EV, a luxury car, the G80 would probably be top on the list. So you mentioned the interior. They make a few different colors. Mine had a really nice blonde leather, heated and cooled seats, heated steering wheel. It's got a 14.5-inch touchscreen, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. And the really cool thing here, I want to get your opinion on this too. So the gauge cluster is digital, but it's got a 3D effect to it, which you can turn off if you get nauseated by things like that. But it's a really cool effect that not many other manufacturers do. So what do you think of the Genesis G80 tech and the way it's implemented in this car?
Well, I like the fact that you can make decisions about it, right? You can configure things and you can have them kind of as far out as you want or not as far out as you want. And I think that's just fine. I'm not nauseated by that. I live in 3D kind of every day, so I'm used to that. I don't bump into stuff all that often. Occasionally I do. But I think overall, I mean, I was in a lot of ways blown away by this car. There are very few cars out there that I go, wow, this is a lot more than I expected. But this Genesis G80 electrified, it's really kind of wowed me in so many different ways.
Yeah. So I think maybe the biggest downside here for me was with headroom, and especially in the back seat with kids. So
because you're based on the regular, tall, right?
Yeah, I was going to try to skate around that this time, but okay. So it's built on the same platform as the regular G80, so the gas-powered G80, and to accommodate the battery packs under the floor, they had to squeeze a little bit of headroom out to get the batteries under there. And the result is that the rear seat is lacking a little bit. So if you have kids in full-size rear-facing car seats or, taller booster seats, or even if you're just 6 feet tall like myself, the back seat does feel a little cramped. That said, the seats themselves are superior. They are extremely comfortable. You've got, I think, heated and cooled back seats in this car, the option, and a nice center console that folds down. So your kids or whomever's in the back seat is going to be really poshly accommodated, even if they do have a little bit shortened headroom. But Jack, at $84K, I mean, it's expensive, but I think with a lot of vehicles, you pay more for the powertrain and don't get more of everything else. But I think with this electric vehicle, you get a little bit more of everything, and they've done a great job with packaging. So I highly recommend it if you're in the market for a brand new luxury electric vehicle. Geez.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing value. And I mean, that's one of the things Genesis does, right? I mean, they know that they're competing with luxury brands that have a lot more heritage to them, a lot more history. They have to provide extra value, and I think they're doing that. And like I say, this is one vehicle that I was just kind of amazed by at how good it is. So very, very cool.
I agree.
Well, I was driving a version of the Ford Mustang that I hadn't driven in a while, the Ecoboost, which is powered by a turbocharged engine, which is very cool. And the thing I like about this is how well balanced this version of the Mustang is. Like, the Mustang needs no introduction. I don't have to tell you about Mustang. And really, it's remained true to its origins, even though we're certainly in a different era than we were in 1965 or 64 when it was introduced. I can tell you that. This is still a front-engine, rear-drive, two-door that emphasizes style way over practicality. not exactly of the moment, right? But at the same time, it's the lone surviving car within Ford Motor Company right now. This is the company that actually kind of made cars popular, right? The Model T put us all on wheels, put us all in cars. Now Ford is only making one car, and it's the Mustang. So I find that interesting. And it's this vehicle. And here is a vehicle with a starting price of less than $30,000 that is a blast to drive, very well balanced. And I just think it's one of those kind of sleeper values out there. I mean, what's your take on this particular version of the Mustang?
I agree. It is a sleeper. The 4-cylinder engine is turbocharged, still has plenty of power and torque jack. It still comes with a manual transmission if you want it. And we've talked about this with lower trims of like the Challenger and the Charger. So if you don't go all the way to the top Hellcat model, you get a car that you can focus on managing the car and driving the car as opposed to not overdoing the gas pedal and flying out tossing out the rear end. So I think for a lot of reasons, it may be a better driver's car overall than like the Mustang GT.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways it is, or a lot of ways you can have plenty of fun with this in any case. I mean, 310 horsepower from the 2.3 liter turbocharged engine. That's a lot of horsepower. I mean, there were performance versions of this car that had less than 300 horsepower in years past. So that is very cool. You can get a high performance package with the EcoBoost engine with 330 horsepower, so an additional 20 horsepower. It doesn't actually add torque. And then if you get the premium package, which is the test car that I had, you get quite a bit of luxury equipment too. Leather upholstery, heated and cooled front seats, dual zone climate control, kind of cool ambient lighting. You get a premium audio system, satellite radio, 8-inch touchscreen with Sync 3. I mean, a lot of good stuff for not a ton of money. I mean, we're talking around, low 30s in terms of price these days. And given the prices of vehicles out there now, I mean, and particularly the prices of electrics that we're looking at, I mean, that's a screaming deal. I just think that there's a lot to like about this vehicle from so many points of view. Is this a vehicle that you would consider? I mean, you're a different generation than I am on this. Is this something that you find cool too?
I do find it cool. I think it's cool that, first of all, you can draw the performance out of a smaller engine like that. Plus, let's be honest, with 330 horsepower, you're not going to need much more than that. My Golf GTI has 241 horsepower, and it's more than quick enough to get me in trouble in traffic. Plus, the Mustang chassis is great. It's a tossable car. It's lively. It handles well. And as I said, I think the slow car fast sort of mentality with this car, even though it's not slow, the slower car fast, let's just say that, may be a better enthusiast prospect. I think that's probably going to be my opinion on it.
Yeah, pretty good fuel economy too. 21 miles per gallon in the city, 32 on the highway. That's not bad at all. The fact that you can get a manual transmission is fun. The test car I had the manual transmission. Some people might opt for the automatic. That's cool, but I really liked having the 6-speed manual. And it all comes back to you. Although I've been driving a lot of manual transmission cars over the last several weeks, and kind of surprisingly, talk about a throwback. I mean, we're talking about a 2-door coupe, rear drive with a 6-speed manual transmission. I mean, that's not exactly of the day, is it?
No, and now that we're talking about this, it just came to me. I think that this could be a great platform for younger drivers too. Like, you spend your 30 grand and a little bit of work, and you have a nice drift car. You have a nice road course car. So the value here is another big thing which you talked about. But I agree, man. It's such a great prospect and great price.
Yeah. It has Sync 3, which is quite good. It has an 8-inch capacitive touchscreen, 9-speaker audio. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, all that stuff. Plenty of USB ports of both types, I think, across the thing. So, and a good amount of safety, Ford Copilot technology, and it gets a good rating in 4 of 5 crashworthiness categories from the IIHS, from the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. So I think, and 5-star safety ratings from NHTSA, from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. So it's a safe car, pretty good fuel economy, a blast to drive, doesn't cost a whole lot of money. Geez, what's not to like?
I'll give it my stamp of approval.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ford Mustang EcoBoost Premium, kind of 4 stars. And of course, the Genesis G80 electrified, another 5-star or at least 4-star car. I think it's 5 stars because it really blew me away. So, big time good vehicles that we're talking about in this segment, I think.
I agree on all accounts.
Very good. And when we come back, we will have a great interview for you. Brian Hallgren is the Stellantis powertrain engineer, partly responsible for the all-new Hurricane twin-turbo inline 6 engine. I like that inline 6 cylinder. That takes me back to the 1960s. That's in the new Grand Wagoneer L and the Wagoneer L. So we'll be talking with him about that. So stay with us right here on America on the Road. Welcome back, everybody, to America on the Road. Jack Red with you, and we are outside Los Angeles, California, in Signal Hill, California, with a great guest for you. Jonathan Rivers is Manager of Product Planning at Honda. Thanks so much for being with us. We do appreciate it. Thanks so much for hosting me here, because really interesting stuff you're showing, including the all-new Honda Accord, the all-new Honda Pilot. Let's dive into both of those. Let's dive into Pilot first. This is kind of an SUV market these days, right? So tell us about the all-new Honda Pilot.
Well, the all-new Honda Pilot is launching as a 2023 model year, should be arriving at dealerships by the end of this year, calendar year 2022, and we can't wait for it to arrive. It's the 4th generation of the Pilot, but it's really the largest, boldest, most capable Pilot we've ever made.
Yeah. When you talk about sport utilities, utility is important, right? SUV, utility is important. Size is one of those factors, right? I mean, it's something that you key in, and I think Honda does a particularly good job about sorting out utility, putting in storage areas, cup holders, those kind of things. Tell us a bit about how you go about developing an SUV.
Well, as you mentioned, I think for Honda, one of our prowess is just being able to do great packaging of our vehicles, and so we always keep that at the forefront of our minds when we're developing new vehicles, and that was definitely the case with the Honda Pilot. There's plenty of storage throughout, cubbies for just about everything you could imagine, a multitude of cup holders that carry a various size of drinks. We know people like to have these large,
that size.
32-ounce jugs, right? So we have at least 8 cup holders that can support that. But one of the really unique selling points of this new Pilot is on certain trims, you're going to have the ability to remove the middle seat in the second row. And while that isn't revolutionary, what is the fact that we have enough space behind the third row in a cubby where you can put it in there and take it with you, and you don't lose any interior space. So it's fantastic to have that flexibility to go from 7-passenger to 8-passenger.
Yeah, really amazing to do that, and how easily it installs. It's fairly light. I think it's under 35 pounds or something like that, and then installs between the 2 middle seats, and suddenly you have a bench seat there, right? That can seat 3.
You have a bench seat there, and when it folds down still in place, it has places for cup holders, throw your cell phone in there, so it's the ultimate in flexibility.
And if you wanted to leave it in the garage for some reason, you could, and you gain extra storage, a significant amount of extra storage that's covered by a floor that actually can exist in 2 levels, right?
Yeah, and it's great because it's reversible too, that top lid. It's carpeted on one side, but a hard plastic on the other side, so when you're throwing your ski boots or things that are wet, it's perfect to have that flexibility.
Yeah. What do you think is the most exciting thing to you about the Pilot? Where do you think this Pilot really is an advance over the previous really successful Honda Pilot?
I think it's definitely going to be the TrailSport trim. Now we've launched that nomenclature on other models, but this is really the iteration that's going to make people think, wow, Honda can go off-road, you can be on your trails, and that was really the focus for the people that designed and developed this new Pilot. Most of the trails that exist here in the U.S. are rated at a moderate level, and that's over half of the trails that are out there, and this Pilot can tackle any of them with no problem.
Yeah, it struck me that, when we first saw the SUV craze, when you were about 5 years old and when I was a middle-aged man, there was a lot of off-road to it. And then the vehicles kind of evolved to be more on-road vehicles. There wasn't much talk about going off-road. And now we're seeing a revival of that. We're seeing a lot of brands come out with vehicles kind of like the TrailSport in that. What do you think has led to that?
Well, obviously, let's be honest. I think the pandemic had some immediate, these last few years, people have wanted to get out more. They want to be with their families. Going to national parks, going to trails is a great way to be out and have space and everything. So that's kind of a very recent trend. But to your point, SUVs have always been very popular. Their popularity now is through the roof. But to your point, I think it's been hard to find the balance where you can get that on-road performance and off-road performance at the same time. But I think this new Pilot, and especially the TrailSport, nails that.
Yeah, well, I want to dive into the TrailSport specifics, but let's get a few more specifics on the standard Pilot. It has an all-new engine, the same displacement, I think, as the previous engine, but it's all new. Tell us about that.
That's right. This is the fourth generation of the Pilot. We've gone through a different iteration almost every generation, kind of going from more bold and rugged to kind of more curvaceous and very clean lines. And I think this generation Pilot, this fourth generation, really nails the head on the styling. It's very, very mature, but very, very bold and powerful at the same time. To your point, it has an all-new V6 engine, 3.5 liters, 285 horsepower, so it's plenty powerful, but it was really designed to ensure that we were able to meet any future emission regulations as well. So we can have this in our lineup, and we didn't take a hit on any kind of power efficiency.
Right. Is it available in front drive and all-wheel drive?
Yes. That engine has made it to our second generation 10-speed transmission. And to your point, the all-wheel drive system, which we call IVTM4, that is available and standard on certain trims.
Yeah, very, very cool. And multiple trims, right? Run us through that real quick.
Yeah, there's really a Pilot for everyone, right? So you start with the Sport trim. We have our EXL trim, probably our volume trim. We have the new TrailSport, and then we have a Touring and Elite, and the Elite gives you everything.
Yeah. What's your favorite feature of the Elite? What is a cool thing that it has that you really like?
I really like the 10.2-inch digital instrument cluster. Those are kind of all the rage these days. People want the graphics, the customization that they offer, and I think on the Elite trim it does just that. So for me, that's my favorite.
Okay, let's jump into the TrailSport. I mean, I love driving off-road. I've done it at other manufacturers' expense for a long time, and really developed a taste for it. It struck me, and I don't think you would disagree, that the first development of TrailSport was more appearance than it was actual hardware that was off-road oriented, and quite successful. A lot of people want that look, and that makes a lot of sense. Now, though, you've taken it in a more hardware-oriented direction, right? There's things about the vehicle that are very specifically all-terrain oriented. Tell us about that.
So it's really been a wish of ours for several years to show, we've always had great, powerful all-wheel drive systems that were quite capable. But to your point, we really wanted to provide the visual to back that up, and that's where that first TrailSport trim came. And that was on a mid-cycle redesign, so, kind of limited in maybe how far we could take it. But with this new Pilot being all new from the ground up, a new architecture, this really allowed us to make some great hardware changes that truly make it the most capable SUV we've ever made. So if I can list off some of those things, right? And people want to know what's included in that, right?
Detail,
so first, it's the first time Honda's put on all-terrain tires as standard on this trim. They're 265 in width, Continental AT tires, so
beefy sidewall
with 18-inch wheels. We've even casted in the logo TrailSport into those wheels, and knowing that people might be hitting rocks and boulders as they're off-roading, the design is the perfect blend of not only sport but rugged to ensure there's no damage to those wheels. And then we've done things like suspension changes to allow greater ride height. There's a standard trailer hitch, even a full-size spare tire, which in this marketplace today is a rarity.
Yeah, and really important when you're going off-road, right? Because you can put a hole in a tire, and you really want a full-size spare to remedy that problem, don't you?
Absolutely. No compact spare is going to fill that void. You need a full size.
Yeah, it's not going to cut it out there. Interesting all-wheel drive system. You touched on part of it, but it has a lot of capabilities, especially for the TrailSport, tuned to that kind of driving, right?
That's right. It's the second generation of this rear differential. We call it IVTM4. And it allows a lot of the power to be sent to the rear, up to 70%, 75% in the TrailSport. And then from there, it can send a certain amount of power to either outboard wheel. And sometimes, especially if you're off-roading, you might have a wheel up actually off the ground. Well, we've even had a special software logic built in that can do brake torque vectoring in the front with the rear differential in the rear, and it'll ensure that you get that tire back down and get home safely.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting, and that's all. It's going to come to market when the rest of the Pilot line comes to market, right?
That's right. So again, at the end of this year, all of those trims that we mentioned will be available for sale.
Yeah, exciting. Let's shift over to Honda Accord. One of the franchise players, certainly. A vehicle that needs no introduction. All new, another generation. I'm not sure of the generation. What is it, 11th or 12th?
11th generation for Accord.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tell us about what we're going to see.
So the 2023 Honda Accord and its 11th generation is really taking Accord's design to the next level. Following the ethos of the many other models that we launched this year, it's a very clean, elegant, premium design. Quite a bit of a departure from the previous 10th generation Accord, but still a very long, sleek, stylish sedan, kind of that fastback look.
And I think a really good looking front end too. I think a departure kind of front end, I think really has some style to it in a different way than Accords have had before.
Yeah, very much an open surface grille, premium LED lighting. But for me, I think it's the rear. That full LED array of taillights that goes across the trunk lid is going to make a statement with that new Accord.
Yeah, that is a good looking rear end treatment for certain. And interiors, I think Honda has been really upping its game in interiors recently. That's certainly what the market has demanded. Tell us about that.
Well, to your point, we've really wanted to have a very clean design. So as you've seen in the 11th Gen Civic, the HR-V, CR-V, we kind of went into this design ethos where we were carrying over the vents for the HVAC across the dash, very straight, clean, simple lines, right? And that's very much true in this new Accord as well. But it's not a carryover; it's an all-new design, and it really makes a visual wow when you sit inside.
Yeah. And from powertrain, you're going to have two powertrains. One, a more conventional and in some ways carryover from the previous Accord, I think. A turbocharged 1.5 liter, and then a hybrid powertrain, correct?
That's right. So the entry powertrain is a 1.5 liter turbocharged engine carried over from the 10th Gen Accord, but we do have an all-new two-motor direct drive hybrid system. It's fantastic because in this generation you're still going to get fantastic driving dynamics and performance, and of course that amazing fuel efficiency as well.
Yeah. Tell our listeners, they might look at a hybrid and go, is that something I want? Is that more complication than I need? But the added drivability, the ability to add torque when you need it from the electric motors, really increases the overall satisfaction of that vehicle significantly, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I think in this day and age of very high gas prices, this is the perfect time to launch this all-new hybrid system. We're expecting half the sales to be this hybrid trim, and again with the new dynamics, the new drivetrain. You don't really have to compromise, right? It drives fantastic.
Yeah, if anything, you're better off. You have more horsepower.
Yeah,
probably
a lot more torque.
A lot more torque, and much better fuel economy on top of it.
Well, and then one other maybe unknown benefit is just it's more quiet, right? That actually, especially around city driving, you're gonna feel it kind of driving in EV mode quite a bit. So it's quiet, it's premium, it's quick, and yet again, you get really good fuel efficiency as well.
Right. Infotainment system, crucial. Big changes in this one, in the Honda Accord, and exciting stuff. Tell us about it.
So we're now putting in on certain trims a 12.3-inch center display, and that's the largest we've ever put in a Honda. But really, the centerpiece is on the top trim, and it's what we're calling Google built-in. So Honda, worked directly with Google to provide an all-new infotainment system. Of course, there's still customers that love their CarPlay and Android Auto options, and those are still there as well. But with this new Google built-in, what it is it's essentially 3 applications. So you have a Google Assistant, and that's integrated into the vehicle. So technically, you could leave your phone at home, And when you're in the vehicle, you can say, hey, Google, please turn on the AC, and boom, it comes right on. And so you can.
I've seen you actually do that.
I will see. So there's a multitude of voice commands that you can use. It's super fast, super responsive. That's the first component. The second one is the Google Maps. So again, even without your cell phone, it's integrated into the vehicle. Again, super fast. You can pinch and zoom. You've got all your POIs in there, so you know where you're going. And what's great is because it's integrated into the vehicle, you can actually display it in the digital instrument cluster behind the steering wheel as well. So you've got multiple views for the maps now. And then lastly, the kind of maybe key component is the fact that we have the Google Play Store built in as well. So that's going to expand the functionality of the vehicle for years to come as customers go through, find their favorite third-party apps. They can download them directly to the vehicle. They've been designed for the vehicle. And so the level of connectivity that we put in this new Accord is truly world-class.
Yeah, really amazing stuff. And they've come a long way, I think, in a fairly short period of time. That's true. What are some of the other aspects of Accord that you're most excited about? To sum up here.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, Accord. Let's not just forget its packaging. Again, we talked about that on the Pilot as well. But we've got great rear seat leg room, headroom. Many of the media that came out and sat in the vehicle were well over 6 feet and had plenty of space in the second row. We have the largest trunk in the segment. So
massive trunk.
Massive.
Really incredible.
A big wide opening to get your larger suitcases in there. So in this day and age when I think everybody's kind of got that SUV craze, we're doubling down on sedans. We're offering a lot of functionality, packaging, performance, fuel efficiency that's going to be hard to beat.
Right, and you think hybrids are going to be maybe 50% of sales. That's a pretty tall order, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we're really treating this as kind of the bridge to electrification, right? We know that if we get more consumers into hybrids, especially with our improved, powertrain this year, they're really going to see the benefit of that and be more considerate of future electric options.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing what Honda comes up with in terms of electrics, because Honda, a great engineering company, as you know, and always come up with really ingenious solutions. So that's terrific. Well, Jonathan Rivers, you're manager of product planning, as I don't have to tell you, at Honda. Thanks so much for telling us about both the new Accord and new Pilot, both coming out very, very soon. This is a busy year for Honda. Thanks so much for being with us.
Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And stay with us, everybody. We'll be right back right here on America on the Road. Welcome back, everybody, to America on the Road with Chris Teague, Jack Nerad back with you. And thanks so much for being with us right here on America on the Road. We do appreciate it. If you like the show, please pass it along to somebody else. This is listener question time. And Chris, I think you're going to ask me the listener question, and we'll see how I do.
Mm-hmm. I am going to ask you. This one comes from Clement in Pensacola, Florida. Clement says that he's been car shopping lately and looking and seeing a lot of 2023 models, but it seems like a lot of them aren't out yet or they're coming later on. What's going on with that, and what could be causing it?
Well, I think you and I both experienced when we were trying to write about 2023 models, and we're not even finding information on manufacturer websites about them, that a lot of the 2023s are not available yet. A lot of it just has to do with supply. I mean, the car companies are concentrating on vehicles that can make them the most money, and at the same time that they have parts and they can build them and get them out into the marketplace. And for some vehicles, that's just not available. And so they're kind of grouping up, well, we can make these, but we can't make those yet. And because they can't even make them or make them in enough numbers, they haven't priced them. That's one of the last things a car company does before a vehicle goes on sale, is they put a price on it for the year. It's an important thing because that MSRP typically doesn't change during the year. So I think that's kind of what's going on, is we still have the supply chain issues, and they're kind of fouling up a lot of things. And for some vehicles, we might not have 2023 models at all.
Yeah, we're seeing years-long lead time on some of these vehicles. Like the GMC Hummer is sold out for the next 2 years, and these vehicles, they take years to develop and to produce. So it's understandable that things are going to be a little bumpy for a little while, I guess.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem to be going away as quickly as a lot of us thought it would. And I think this is going to continue well into next year. And I think then it'll level out. And at some point, I think in 2023, supply will catch up with demand. And then we'll kind of revert to the way the market more used to be and see some incentives and see maybe a little friendlier buying posture at that point.
Let's hope so. I'll be ready to buy a new car by then.
Right. Well, I think that is our show for this week. Chris, thanks so much for so ably co-hosting and telling us all about the cool vehicle that you talked to us about in this episode.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I'll say if you like what you heard and you want to listen more, head to the sportsmapradio.com website. You can find us there on the Saturday morning schedule. You can find our podcast on all the major platforms, as well as a formatted radio version of the show.
Right. Our thanks to the SportsMap Radio Network stations for carrying America on the road. If you're interested in my book, Dance in the Dark, a crime thriller, look for that on Amazon. That is available right now, and I'm pretty proud of it. It's kind of cool. There's some kind of cool car stuff in it, actually. And join us again next week for another edition of America on the Road.